The manga arc of Granolah ended in spectacular fashion with Frieza returning and stomping gas, both figuratively and literally, which ushered in a new transformation for Frieza, Black Frieza. Logically, because Frieza's next act was knocking out both True Ultra Instinct Goku and Ultra Ego Vegeta, people assumed this meant that the next arc's villain would be Black Frieza. Adding to this, Toyotaro and Victory Yoshida later went on to discuss Frieza's new transformation, explaining the significance of its colouring and explaining the logic behind it, lending more to the suggestion that this will be a big focal point in the arc to come. However, even if the next arc would be called the Black Freeza arc, it's almost painfully obvious that it won't be as straightforward as that. If the next arc is all about Black Freeza, why give away the big surprise before the arc even begins? And so he has a new transformation, and Goku and Vegeta want to defeat him. But where's the story there? Dragon Ball has a history of setting up bigger arcs with returning villains, or with smaller mini-villains. This has been the case with Raditz leading into Nappa and Vegeta, Vegeta leading into the Namek arc, where we were given Frieza, Mecha Frieza leading into the androids leading into Cell, Babidi and Dabura leading into Majin Buu. These are classic examples from Dragon Ball Z, but Super's done it as well, as recently as Granolah. Granolah himself led into the heaters, or more specifically, gas. Black Freeza has now appeared with this new form, at the end of an arc, but his intimidating entry didn't actually peg him as an antagonist. I mean, sure, he knocked out Goku and Vegeta, but he didn't kill them, nor did he even do anything disastrously evil. What other feat did he perform? He killed off the main villain of the arc. Frieza in recent years has been portrayed more as an anti-hero than as a main antagonist. In the Tournament of Power, he was hard to trust, but he worked with the other 9 members of Universe 7 to help secure the victory. And even moments before that, Frieza attempted a kamikaze attack on Jiren to try and land the win. Elsewhere during the tournament, he also tried to repay a debt to Goku in restoring his energy after Goku's initial bout with Ultra Instinct, which was a nice throwback to Namek. In the Broly movie, Frieza was used as a way to initiate the fight between a character that was being written to be a kind-hearted Saiyan, with insane tendencies. So Frieza pitting Goku and Vegeta against Broly was a necessary part of the narrative of the movie. But once again, what was the only fight that Frieza was in that film? Frieza fought Broly, and killed Paragus, another villain. Sort of. It's unfair to say that this is the same version of Frieza that we saw in Dragon Ball Z. This is a much more likeable version of Frieza who has funny dialogue and fights villains. And whilst he dislikes Goku and Vegeta, he has seemingly put aside his grudge in order to focus on himself and his empire, which I suppose is character growth. Frieza is also stuck between a rock and a hard place, knowing all too well of the relationship with Beerus and Whis, and Goku and Vegeta, and knowing that if he should kill Goku and Vegeta, it probably wouldn't win him over any favours with Beerus and Whis. This version of Frieza is a lot more akin to the version of Vegeta that we saw on Namek and in the early part of the Androids arc. He does evil things, he's self-centered, hates Goku, but leaves him alive for the sake of his own gain. He fights the villains for his own pleasure, but not to save anyone. This character spot is currently available, because Vegeta is a fully fledged good guy in the story, so Frieza is basically in the Vegeta role now. What is most likely going to happen is that Goku, Vegeta and Broly will keep Black Freeza on the brain, and they'll be preparing for their fight with him. Logically, they will assume that he is going to be the next big threat. However, something will likely happen either before or whilst they fight, causing them to either be weakened for when this new villain appears, or Goku is defeated and unable to fight, causing some tension and reason for the next arc to not end as soon as it begins. Much like on Namek and in the Androids arc where Goku just wasn't available for the beginning of the fight and had to have some reason to be taken out of the story, only to swoop in the latter half of the arc and try to fix things. Perhaps Whis will have to interrupt their fight because of this new threat and they'll be forced to work together. Does that sound far-fetched? It's already happened a couple of times now. For the last half of a decade, this has been the direction they've been giving to Frieza, forcing him into anti-hero and comical situations that end up painting him as a recurring and main character. But here's the other thing to consider. Frieza is one of, if not the most iconic anime villain of all time. And from a marketing perspective, it's a disservice to a franchise that holds such iconic characters to not have some of them appear at the drop of a hat. Especially in a show that effectively holds death as a non-consequential thing and revives people at the drop of a hat itself. Toei constantly found new ways to revive and eventually reboot Broly due to his popularity, and Frieza has died and been revived multiple times now also. So, if Frieza were to die again, they would be forced to find yet another reason to revive him. And given the fact they just gave him that nice storybook ending in the Tournament of Power where Whis and Beerus gifted him a life, you can't really top that just by saying, oh, Yeah, we'll wish him back with the Dragon Balls. What, they're just going to keep doing it? No, you've brought him back enough times now. I think he's staying around. That is the reason they didn't kill him after Broly. That is the reason they let him live after the Tournament of Power. It's because Frieza is now going to just exist in this universe. They are not going to kill him again. Progressing Frieza's character this way keeps some antagonist around in the universe that will forward and progress fights for the main cast without them having to go looking for the fights. This is the issue that Toriyama ran into with Gohan when he tried to make him the main character after Cell, was that Gohan was going to take the mantle after Goku. The problem was that Toriyama found Gohan difficult to write for because Gohan was a pacifist and so he didn't actively go looking for fights. Well, now that you have an antagonist that does that for you, it just opens a plethora of possibilities for the future of Dragon Ball. At this stage, it basically just feels like Toei and Toriyama have agreed that they just don't want Frieza dead. He's too useful for furthering stories and fights to stay dead. He's so iconic that he is a draw to the franchise when he's involved in the story, hence why Super has revived him twice, but technically brought him back for 3 different arcs. And they've just spent the last few years re-establishing his character and giving him new forms. Well, colour palettes. So it really seems as if all signs are pointing towards not only Frieza not being the main villain of the next arc, but also just not dying again. I mean, let's be honest. How many times has Toriyama changed a bad guy into an anti-hero and then eventually into a fully fledged good guy? You've got Yamcha, Tenshinhan, Piccolo, Vegeta, the androids, Majin Buu, and that's not counting the characters who are just antagonists like Hit and Jiren who eventually just turn into protagonists at the end. It's a very well-established Dragon Ball trope at this point, and they don't run from it. The whole point of Goku's journey is the fact that people find him so captivating that they end up liking him and they join him. The future of Frieza is most likely that he'll be given a type of God of Destruction role for whilst Beerus is asleep, as to be able to keep him alive for when they need him, and to be able to write him off screen with plausible reason, he's doing his job, and to let him continue to do quote-unquote evil things without punishment from Goku and Vegeta, because after all, he's just doing his job. All in all, the scenario pretty much writes itself. So, with all this, do you think that Frieza's going to be the next villain? Or do you think he's going to continue to be portrayed as an anti-hero? Let me know in the comment section down below. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, as it really does help the channel out, and please maybe consider subscribing. I do cover lots of Dragon Ball content on this channel. I've also started to do Dragon Ball live streams on Wednesdays and Sundays, although haven't been too crazy consistent on that over the last few weeks, but there has been a good reason. I will explain it another day. But be sure to stick around and check those out as and when. So, until we meet again, bye!